Hello, this is Chef John from foodwishes.com with the Manhattan Filet. That's right, I'm going to show you a little home butchering technique to turn a strip steak into what looks and eats like a filet mignon. Except unlike a filet mignon, it's not going to be as lean and it's actually going to have more flavor. But wait, that's not all. The trimmings from this procedure are going to be used to make one of the greatest pan sauces you've ever had, which will be a separate video recipe following this one. So here we go. I have one very large, gorgeously trimmed New York sirloin strip steak. And of course, it's perfectly fine to eat like this. And once it's cooked and you're cutting pieces, you can always trim off any fat or sinew or silver skin or whatever. But to create a Manhattan filet, we're going to go ahead and trim away everything except that center eye of meat. So we're going to take a very sharp knife and we're simply going to go around trimming off everything that's not that center piece of meat. All right, so we'll cut off that little tail piece. And you can see we got little nuggets of meat in there, but that's fine. Like I said, in the next sauce video, you're going to see what we do with those. So do not be afraid to trim off a little bit of meat as you're getting this fat off. In fact, that's more desirable. So we'll simply continue around cutting off everything that's not pure meat. And it should be fairly obvious where you should be cutting. And you may be tempted to not trim off this one end here, because it looks like there's a lot of meat there, and there is. But there's also a lot of connective tissue. So we are going to go ahead and cut that off right where it attaches to that main eye of meat. And then once all the visible fat is trimmed off, we can go ahead and do a little fine tuning and shaping. I'm going to cut off that little pointy bit there to make it look more like a filet. But really, that's up to you. You are the Robert Oppenheimer of this steak trimming primer. Oh, and by the way, as a side note, I learned this trick on a food blogger trip to Las Vegas. And while it wasn't the only trick I learned on the trip, it's the only one I can actually show. But anyway, after we've carved our New York strip into a Manhattan filet, we have one more job to do. We're going to go through all those trimmings and we're going to cut off every single scrap of meat we can use. So really the only thing you should be discarding is pure pieces of white fat that have no meat attached. All right, if you can see any red meat at all, just go ahead and include that in the pile. So that's what I went ahead and did. And I actually went ahead and did that with 2 steaks. So as you can see here, I have 2 beautifully trimmed Manhattan filets. I have a dinner date and a fairly decent pile of meat scraps. Now, of course, you can save that and make a killer meat sauce. That would be a fantastic idea. But like I keep saying, we're going to use that for the sauce. So all I need you to do is wrap that up and put it away, and we will continue on with this Manhattan filet project. So what we're going to do at this point is season those up with some freshly ground black pepper. And then I didn't want to say anything because I wanted it to be a surprise, but we're actually going to dry age these overnight. So after the black peppering, I'm going to go ahead and throw those on a little rack on a tray, which of course will encourage airflow. If you don't have one of those, just crinkle up a piece of foil. And what we'll do is we'll pop those in the fridge uncovered overnight, which is going to theoretically intensify that flavor a little bit because we are losing a little bit of water content. And as you can see here, when I take it out the next day, that surface is going to get nice and leathery. It's going to make for a beautiful crust. And what we'll do is we'll pull those out. We'll let those warm up a little bit, maybe 15, 20 minutes. And at that point, we will season them generously with salt. And we will cook them, as it says on every bad restaurant menu in the country, to perfection. By the way, restaurants, stop putting that on your menu. We'll be the judge of that. Not necessary. But anyway, we're going to go over to the stove where I have a skillet on high heat with a little bit of vegetable oil in it. And once that's super hot, we'll start searing our Manhattan fillets. And generally with this kind of thing, we want to preheat on high, get that thing super hot. And then once those are in there and searing viciously, I will generally back the heat down to like medium high. And I'm going to sear that first side for about 4 or 5 minutes. As you know, I can't really give times for proteins. There's just too many variables. So you just go ahead and cook that steak to your liking. Although one quick tip here, whether you're cooking a Manhattan filet or a traditional filet mignon, you want to sear the sides a little bit. You don't want to be looking at that gorgeous, crusty surface, and then a half-inch below you have this like pink-gray exposed surface of meat. That's not a good look. So sear those sides in the hot pan a little bit. All right, and at this point I determined mine were close enough to medium rare to remove them. So we will remove to a plate to rest, and we'll go ahead and let those rest for about 5 to 10 minutes. All right, you're going to get your sides ready. You're going to get your sauce together. Like I said, we're going to show you that. And at that point, you will be looking at one of the most gorgeous steaks you've ever seen in your life. Like I said, the exact shape of a filet mignon, the no trimming of a filet mignon, and yet we have the marbling and the beefier flavor of the New York strip steak. I mean, come on. And by the way, if you're thinking, man, that sauce looks amazing, I really hope he shows us that. I'm going to in the next demo. I've said that like 4 times already. So anyway, let's finish up by cutting into this thing. You need to give 0 thought to trimming. Every bite's going to be perfect, gristle-free, no fat, no silver skin, no nothing, except pure steak enjoyment. It's just a really easy and great technique. And like I said, you're going to be amazed at what we do with those trimmings. All right, so stay tuned for that. But in the meantime, I hope you go pick up a couple New York strips and give this fun and revolutionary technique a try. So head over to foodwishes.com for, well, there's no ingredients, but there's more information as usual. And as always, enjoy.